World Cup in 1994 was a huge success for US soccer. The final between Brazil and Italy holds the record for the highest attendance of any World Cup final, with over 94,000 fans filling the Rose Bowl. In order to host the World Cup, the US had to set up a professional league, and 2 years later, Major League Soccer was born. But before we move on, let me introduce myself. I'm Jared, and if you hadn't already figured it out, I'm from England, the birthplace of soccer, or football as we call it. As a player, coach, and lifelong fan of the sport, I've tried to learn everything I can about the beautiful game. I've lived here in the US for over 2 years, but I've known about Major League Soccer for much longer. Speaking of which, let's get back into it. The league got off to a rocky start, but it is now beginning to flourish as one of the largest first division soccer leagues in the world, with 30 teams expecting to play in 2022. One of the teams that joined the league early on is Utah's very own Real Salt Lake. I saw my first RSL game back in 2010 when I was visiting the US. This was the year after they won the MLS Cup, and I've followed them ever since. At the time, I had no idea how unique this team was, and recently I've been thinking, what can Real Salt Lake teach me, an Englishman, about soccer? The first thing I learned is that Utah isn't as big as I thought it was. We're not exactly a primetime state. The population of my hometown, Nottingham, is only around 330,000, but we had 2 soccer stadiums and a national cricket ground right next door to each other, so we were spoiled for choice when it came to professional sports. This might seem like a strange flex, but Utah really is fortunate. Not many states had a soccer team back in 2005 when RSL joined the league, and now everyone is getting involved. This leads me to my second point. The team is small, but it packs a punch. Real Salt Lake holds several Major League Soccer records, including 0 home losses in 2010. In fact, Real Salt Lake's biggest strength is their home performance. Since 2009, when the team moved into the Rio Tinto Stadium, they have played 183 regular season games, won 109, tied 47, and lost only 27 times. They lose less than 15% of their games. In fact, they've never lost more than 4 home games in a single season. So if you go to see a Real Salt Lake game, you're pretty much guaranteed to see a great result. Another thing I've learned about Real Salt Lake is that their players love Utah. Kyle Beckerman has played in the MLS for 20 years and was part of the RSL team that won the MLS Cup back in 2009, and he's still playing today. He's second on the all-time games played list behind Nick Rimando, who also played for RSL. Here's what Kyle had to say about his experience here in Utah.
As soon as I got here, I noticed I was different here than other places. They're fans. They're fans for all our Utah sports, and soccer's no different.
Nader Manoa is one of my favorite players on the team, and we have a lot in common actually. We both grew up playing soccer, or football as we prefer to call it, and both moved here in 2018. But he gets to play soccer professionally, and I just get to talk about it. I asked him about his experiences of being part of the booming popularity of soccer here in Utah.
It pains me to say it, but it's soccer. In terms of a place to live, it's incredible. And the fans really get behind the teams here. I think it's as good a fan base as you'll find anywhere in the country.
The fourth thing I learned is that Real Salt Lake recruits like a European team. They are adapting the way that they recruit players because they struggle to compete financially with larger market teams. RSL can't just go out there and buy an expensive European player. So instead, they've invested in an academy facility in nearby Harriman, Utah. Having an academy means that the team can start training players from a young age and grow talent from within. The $100 million facility includes several full-size training fields, a high school and living quarters for academy players, and a 5,000-seat stadium for the reserve and academy teams.
You see that in Europe, that model sometimes, but to have it here in the US now, that's the uniqueness that we have here, is to have everyone on one roof. We're more structured, set up to be promoting from within, using our academy players, going out and find those guys, those diamonds in the rough.
So far, training players in the academy seems to be working. Real Salt Lake boasts one of the best young squads in Major League Soccer, with 12 current players on the roster being listed as homegrown. Some of the best teams in Europe operate this way, so for me, it's great to see that Real Salt Lake are making it their own. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Real Salt Lake are a perfect team with a perfect fan base. In fact, I think RSL, along with the majority of MLS teams, struggle when it comes to filling the stadium every game. I hate seeing empty seats in the stadium because this is a sport that I love watching. And trust me, games are way better in person than on TV. But this is just one of the things on a long list of growing pains that the league as a whole is experiencing. But it is growing. The league attracts talented players that are causing the world to turn its eyes to the US and notice that we enjoy soccer here too. Here's the thing. The World Cup is coming back to the US in 2026, the first time in over 30 years. In that time, Real Salt Lake has been one of the teams to lead the way in US soccer. Yeah, they may not be the biggest team around, but we're lucky to have had a team for so long. They've made Utah a fortress for visiting teams, rarely losing games at home. The players love it here and they love playing in front of the fans. The team also focuses on finding and developing young, homegrown talent. But most importantly, Real Salt Lake gives Utahns and international fans like myself an opportunity to learn and to get involved in the world's most popular sport, the beautiful game of soccer.